A mother is about to land in Los Angeles with absolutely no idea what her daughter has survived. No idea about the gun. No idea about the hostage tape wrapped around her wrists. No idea that her little girl killed a woman with her own car just to stay alive. No idea that before any of that, her daughter was sleeping in the backseat of that same car because she had nowhere else to go. And no idea that two of the most powerful women in Los Angeles have spent weeks calling her daughter a liar, a user, and a gold digger to her face. She thinks she's flying in for a visit. What she's actually flying into is a war. And once she finds out the truth, somebody in this story is going to wish she'd stayed home. Welcome to B&B News 24. I'm Adam. And if this is your first time here, do me a favor. Before we get into it, hit that subscribe button and tap the like icon because we live in this world of bold and the beautiful every single day. And you do not want to miss what's coming when this next arrival hits the canvas. Because today we're talking about Darcy Dillon, the mother of Melissa Dillon. The woman everyone on this show simply calls Dillon. And what happens when Darcy finally lands in LA and finds out exactly what her daughter has been through. Let's start with the woman at the center of all of it because you need to understand who Melissa Dillon actually is before you understand why her mother showing up changes everything. Dillon is not a schemer. She is not a manipulator. She is a young woman who came to Los Angeles with nothing, who has been running on survival instinct for months, and who has been forced to smile through humiliation after humiliation from people who have never once had to wonder where their next meal was coming from. Forrester has degraded her by telling lies about her in an effort to fire her. She has been slapped and threatened by Electra Forrester, who treats her like an inconvenience rather than a coworker. And she has been quietly accused behind closed doors and sometimes not so quietly of being a gold digger by Katie Logan, the mother of the man Dillon has fallen in love with. That man is Will Spencer, Katie's son, and the entire triangle between Dillon, Will, music, and Electra is about to collide headfirst with a mother who has spent her whole life protecting her daughter from a world that keeps trying to knock her down. This is the part of the story that makes it so much more dangerous than just a soap feud. Darcy doesn't know the half of it. She might not know any of it because Dillon has spent months hiding the worst parts of her life in LA from the one person who would drop everything and fly across the country the second she found out. Dillon didn't tell her mother that she was living out of her car before she got the job at Forrester Creations. She didn't tell her that a woman named Luna Nozawa held her at gunpoint, tied her up, and left her for dead. And she certainly didn't tell her that in order to survive that night she got behind the wheel of her car and ran Luna down, killing her. Think about what that night actually would have felt like from the inside. Bound, frightened, and staring at a gun held by someone who had already demonstrated her capacity for extreme violence with no guarantee of survival. Luna wasn't after Dillon specifically that night, which almost makes it worse in a strange way. Dillon was collateral damage and someone else's obsession. Caught in the crossfire of a danger that had nothing to do with her and everything to do with Steffi. When Dillon finally saw her opening and made the split-second decision to get behind the wheel and drive, that wasn't calculation. That was not a plan. That was pure animal instinct kicking in after weeks or months of a body running on adrenaline and fear. Killing someone, even in self-defense, even when there was no other choice, leaves a mark that doesn't just disappear once the immediate danger is gone. Since replaying it, Dillon probably carries that night with her every day, wondering if she could have done something differently. When she closes her eyes, she wonders if she will ever stop seeing it. And she has been doing all of that while also showing up to work, smiling through Electra's cruelty, and trying to build something resembling a normal life without her mother, without anyone who truly understands what she survived by her side. That single act, born entirely out of self-preservation and terror, is the reason Dillon even has a job at Forrester Creations in the first place. Steffi Forrester, who Luna had actually been targeting that night, felt so consumed by guilt over what happened to Dillon that she gave her a position at the company almost as a form of penance. Think about that for a second. Dillon's entire Forrester Creations career was built on the guilt of someone else. Not merit, not connections, not nepotism like practically everyone else walking those halls. And now the people who got their positions handed to them by birthright are the ones treating her like she doesn't belong. That is the psychological wound sitting underneath every single interaction Dillon has with Electra Forrester. Electra was born into fashion royalty. She has never had to claw her way into a room. She has never had to wonder if she'd have a roof over her head next week. And yet, she is the one standing in judgment of a woman who nearly died just trying to survive a random encounter with violence. When Dylan mentioned, almost as an aside, that losing her job would mean she couldn't afford to keep her apartment, Electra's reaction wasn't sympathy. Even though it was neutral, it was indifference. The kind of cold, entitled indifference that only comes from someone who has never once had to worry about where they'd sleep. Electra is unconcerned about Dylan becoming homeless once more. That tells you everything you need to know about where Electra's priorities sit right now. And it tells you exactly what kind of reckoning is coming when Darcy Dillon finds out her daughter almost lost her home for a second time because a spoiled young woman with a famous last name decided she didn't like the competition for Will Spencer's affection. And Dillon hasn't even had to deal with this kind of cruelty before inside those walls. Ivy Forrester spread lies about her in an effort to fabricate a reason to get her pushed out of the door completely before Electra ever slapped her or threatened her job. Ivy never really needed a reason. She simply decided Dylan didn't belong, and she went to work manipulating the narrative until it started to stick. When people talk about Forrester Creations as a glitzy fashion empire, that's what they forget. Underneath the photo shoots and the runway shows, it has functioned for months and now as a pressure cooker of entitlement, where anyone without the right last name is treated as disposable the second they become inconvenient. Dylan has effectively been fighting this same battle against a rotating cast of Forrester women who all seem to believe that cruelty is simply the cost of doing business when you're protecting the family's territory. Although Ivy is no longer with us, she taught Electra the exact playbook and she picked it up without missing a beat. With Ivy out of the picture, Electra and Katie are the only two obstacles left standing between Dylan and a version of her life that doesn't involve constant fear. And that is precisely why Darcy's timing could not be more critical. She isn't walking into a settled situation. She's walking into the tail end of a siege that has already worn her daughter down more than anyone at Forrester or in the Logan family seems willing to admit. And make no mistake, that is what this is actually about. Electra doesn't want Will anymore in the way you'd expect from someone fighting for a relationship. She dumped him. She walked away from what they had. But somehow she still believes she gets to say in who he loves next. And that entitlement is exactly the kind of behavior that turns a workplace dispute into a full-blown vendetta. Every excuse Electra makes about Dylan not belonging at Forrester, about Dylan being unqualified, about Dylan somehow being a threat to the company, is really just a smokescreen for the fact that she cannot stand watching Will fall for someone else while she gets to sit on the sidelines and pretend she doesn't care. Katie Logan's motivations are murkier and in some ways more heartbreaking because Katie isn't cruel by nature. Katie is a mother trying to protect her son from what she believes is a predator. She has convinced herself, whether out of genuine concern or wounded pride over how quickly Will has fallen for someone new, that Dylan orchestrated her entire arrival in Will's life. She has looked at the timeline, the hostage situation, the job at Forrester, the sudden romance with her son, and instead of seeing a young woman who survived something horrific and found comfort in an unexpected place, Katie sees calculation. She sees a woman chasing money and status using trauma as a foot in the door to a wealthy family. It is an ugly assumption, and it is almost certainly wrong, but it comes from a place that a lot of parents will recognize. The certainty that you already know exactly how to protect your child was disguised as the fear that someone would hurt them. It's worth pausing on where that fear actually comes from because Katie Logan didn't wake up one day and decide to be cruel to a stranger for no reason.